Corn dropping today and soybeans going down by 2 digits. We are going to speak about the short-term and longer-term issues with Jerry Gidel from Chicago, Illinois, right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. Stay tuned and don't forget subscribe. So Jerry, how are you today? Let me know about what you think on these short-term issues that I think they are no longer impacting the market.
Well, this has been a tricky week here. The weather for most of the week wasn't all that good, but the forecast was for some type of moderation here coming this weekend, and then in the early part of next week. But in general, the big ridge in the western part of the U.S. is still out there, and so I think that's still going to be a major factor, and to some extent here. Particularly in the soybean side of things, which really took kind of a beating today. It's going to be real important at this point. August is really the important month for soybeans as to we do some potting, we do some blossoming, things like that. But what kind of weather sustains during the 3 or 4 weeks of August is really a big factor on its yield here in the U.S. Along the way. And so that's a factor. Also, even earlier this week, I guess the one thing we don't want to forget about is the fact that Brazil, wow, more tough weather down there in Paraná and also in Rio about freezes, things like that. I even saw snow on a TV screen here in Chicago for Brazil. Wow, I've never seen that. So those are definitely some tougher weather for the tail end of the corn production in Brazil. But why wasn't that a bigger factor in the market? I think is the fact that the Chinese have been holding their gun here. They just have not really decided that they need to add on any production. Yes, they've bought some stuff from South America. They've bought some stuff from us that's going to be here for the fall already. Interestingly enough, I'm not sure of the stuff they bought from South America and particularly Brazil. They're going to be able to get that crop in the boat and over to China. So I think there's going to be some shifting around here of some of their previous purchases, but they haven't decided to make that adjustment this week. So we had a bounce around day, and then today we slipped away a typical Friday somewhat in the U.S. here ahead of a weekend where weather can always change.
Yes, and what you think on the demand side of things? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think the demand overall is still going to be very robust. And I really think that China, because of things going, I know that we're still back and forth here about the African swine fever. And now we've had recently some ideas that maybe some hogs and pork were damaged or actually hurt dramatically by the floods in Henan province and that. And there's some of that going on. I really think, though, that the overall expansion and ideas here on Chinese livestock production are still going to be on the upswing and that. And I also think that, as we just mentioned here, there's going to be situations here where the South American crops will not be able to supply some of their purchases down there. Now, I actually even heard that Argentina is being a source for some of the lost bushels in Brazil at this point. And so that's another interesting scenario. The Argentines are having a heck of a situation here of getting their crops into the export channel because of the Paraná River being 50% of normal, and it's causing some of the shipments to be shortchanged by only, instead of 100%, they're only shipping out 60% in their shipments to get it down the river. So, it's a tough go out there in South America these days to get things in the export channels and get them over to overseas customers. So I kind of feel like that's going to be a benefit to the North America. At the same time is that what kind of crops are we going to have here in the northern plains and Argentina? Things have really kind of tightened up out there.
Yes, and you are also worried about the wheat crops in the northern part of the USA.
Yes, we just had an update this week by the U.S. Wheat Associates that guided their tour from Fargo out into the central part of the state and then back here. They updated their numbers yesterday. Their first day results were 29 bushels. Their second day results, which is in really more prime wheat country further out along the Missouri River, was 24.6. And then they moved back from kind of the edge of the Durham production up around Devil's Lake in North Dakota, and that they then swung back to Fargo, and they had some very good yields coming into Fargo around 35 bushels. So the 29 bushel yield, though, is fully a third off of the 5-year average. And now the twist of it is that the USDA's North Dakota number is at 28 bushel. I kind of feel like that there's going to be potentially some higher abandonment that's going to happen out of North Dakota and South Dakota too here because of the heat and dryness. And it's not just because of the wheat crop looking kind of poorly. It's because the pastures and the forage capabilities for the feeder cattle world, any dairies, things like that. They're going ahead and baling up some of this hay or forage, baling up this wheat for forage and so that's going to reduce the number of acres out there, and overall is going to reduce the number of bushels that are there. Now, let's just don't always think that we're going to look at North Dakota, South Dakota for spring wheat, or even Montana. Things have not been going well. There's been somewhat of a cool down at times up in Canada, but surprisingly, the heat that's really built up in the western half of the U.S. and where the core of this ridge is at has seen some things kind of rotate over the top of the ridge, but it seems like that Alberta, Saskatchewan have really not received all that much moisture over the last few weeks. And you start looking at the world numbers, they're going to have to be down some 2 to 3 million bushels. And the same thing in the U.S., a million metric tons, I should say. I think the USDA is at 31.5, and I think there's a lot of expectations that are going to be down at 28.5. That's 3 million metric tons. And then the U.S. situation, I think there's still some expectations of 1 or 2 million metric ton slippage there too. So the wheat side of things is going to be an interesting thing because that really does take away not so much the wheat in these two areas, Northern Plains and up in Canada. These are not the wheats we traditionally use for feed. They're high protein type of wheats in that we're talking 14, 15, 16% protein. This is what we blend with other wheats to make good quality breads and other things, pizza doughs, things of that nature with high gluten and that. And so these are not those wheats, but it ends up meaning that some other hard wheats that might be below 11% might be still utilized here because of the total supplies of wheat here in the U.S. and Canada. And as we just also threw out here that there's been some problems in Russia, and I'd have to say that I've heard some updates just even today where one of the more prominent consultancies over there dropped their number from 81 down to 78 million metric tons. because of this ongoing problems and heat out in the Russian spring wheat crop production prospects out there near Kazakhstan. So, the wheat market uh, actually is only off a little bit today, while the corn and soybeans kind of took it in the chin today.
Yes, and what are you expecting from next week? I heard you are going to drive throughout the Midwest.
Yes, we've uh, our friend Jack Scoble and I are going to end up making our annual Central Illinois tour. We've been kind of doing this thing off and on for anywhere from 6 to 10 years at different times in different places along the way. We've kind of settled into an area that goes down and kind of circles around Bloomington, Illinois, hits the counties that are around that prominent spot there, and that's one of the real heart of Illinois type of prospects. Maybe you can get down to Springfield and Champaign, you get a little bit more, but you get a good feel of what's going on in Central Illinois prospects, and that gives you a feel of what's going on in the state of Illinois. Last year, the one thing we did see that really kind of gave us a tip off that things were maybe not as rosy as they looked from the road was the fact that the numbers of plants with viable ears, in essence, the ear population situation was lower than normal, at least over the last 2 or 3, 4 years on things. And that, of course, the year before 19, we had some ups and down problems and lots of issues there. But then going back and looking at 18 and 17, the plant populations were 2 to 3,000, or excuse me, the ear populations, not so plants. Now, I have to say that the plants might have been there. We had a lot of numbers, and this wasn't really good quality development. And that's going to be, I don't think we're seeing that. The one thing that Jack and I are both kind of looking forward to seeing is how much the ears and length will be, and how many rows around there will be. Usually you get around a 17 bushel or 17 rows average for the tour, and maybe you're into the 35 to 40 length of kernels and that's going to be highly important as to what that comes out to be. That's something that we'll have a good handle on, at least on this area. Now, guaranteed, this is not the whole state of Illinois, and there's issues up and down, and some places have better weather, and some places are not as good, and that, so it's not the total story, but it's something that we've done as our way of a barometer to see what the a major state's prospects might be. And I think it's been useful to us and others as we look at things going forward. Of course, we'll continue to watch the weather and its prospects there across the Midwest, and it's because I really think that this year's crop size is not. We've had enough ups and downs, and major part of this country has been under extreme stress, and I'm not sure that area is going to not pull down some of the overall total bushels, and that we'll just have to see. First thing is to go out there and look around and see what we see.
Indeed, we are eager to see that. Thank you, Jerry.
You bet, and we'll look forward to next week to kind of share what we see.